What's good, you geeks, nerds, and blurs? I am Winston A. Marshall, aka the Swaggy Blurred, and welcome to another episode of the Inner Geekdom Show. Now, for those of you that are unfamiliar with the movie trivia Schmoedown, the Inner Geekdom Show is where we take questions from the Inner Geekdom division or the nerdy division, the comic books, the fantasy, sci-fi, all of that, and we break it down. We not only break down the question and how it was answered, but we're breaking down like the origins of characters, we're breaking down feuds and rivalries, villainy, heroes, all that kind of stuff. We do it right here. And again, the Schmoedown, if you're not familiar, you take the best in wrestling personalities, you put it with the best in movie trivia, you throw it up in a pot, you made some jambalaya, baby. It's an absolute thing that you want to be a part of. So if you haven't checked out a match, you definitely want to do that. And the one that I've got the question from today, oh boy, you go, whoo, Lord. All right, so now if you're a fan of the show, you already know that we have something called the Schmoebot. It's run through STREAMLABS. Anything that is over $20 will be read out loud on the show. And Dwayne Burke is here, my engineer extraordinaire. Dwayne, let's go ahead and leave it on throughout the show, man. I'm actually okay with that. It was something that I was also toying, Kristian and I were talking about. We will have that going the entire show. So the name of the Schmoebot this week, because I changed it based on what we're talking about. This time it's going to be Oracle. For those that are familiar with Batman lore, I know I'm talking about Batman for a third time, but look, it's my favorite superhero. Plus, we're talking about Christmas, and this is a big debate about Christmas movies. So Oracle is going to be what it is today. You send in those $20 StreamLabs, get your Oracles in, let them read throughout, kind of join the conversation because we're going to ask the big questions today. You can also send in super chats. Super chats is great as well. Oracle's just a little bit better. Also, if you are listening to the podcast, please be sure to give a 5-star review on the podcast. If you listen to podcasts, go and subscribe and throw a review up there. It helps the show. That's how we get sponsors. They love seeing that kind of movement on the podcast circuit. So please, wherever you listen to them, Apple, Spotify, Google Play, all that stuff, hit us up. Now, let's jump right into it. The Inner Geekdom Trivia Question of the Week. Now, there's two questions that get asked all the time in the nerd world. The first is, which franchise has the best villains? And the second is, what makes a Christmas movie? I know it sounds weird to think that nerds don't talk about that, but this is something we argue all the time. Now, today we're going to answer both of those questions. Anybody with half a brain will far and agree that the best rogues gallery out there is Batman's, period. I mean, Spider-Man's got some dope villains. You're talking Lizard and Rhino, all those animal sets, Kraven the Hunter, Green Goblin, amazing villains, right? You got the X-Men dealing with Apocalypse and Juggernaut and Magneto, like a bunch of dope villains. The fact in Star Wars, the Empire and the First Order, that is crazy. That mess is absolutely insane. But come on now. Pound for pound, the answer is easily Batman, Joker, Two-Face, Mr. Freeze, Bane, Poison Ivy, Ra's al Ghul, just to name a few, let alone the frenemies like Catwoman or Azrael or Talia al Ghul. But today, we are specifically going to focus on a villain that's part freak, part mob boss, who's always ready for the rain. I'm talking about the Penguin. And now, while Batman Returns hasn't been asked about in recent memory in the Inner Geekdom division, one of the nerdiest Schmoedown competitors of all time won his first match on this film, so it counts. All right, it counts for the Inner Geekdom show. So check this out. Uh-oh, we're having some technical difficulties.
Oh, sorry, what did you mean?
Possibly the win. Which villain runs for mayor of Gotham City in Batman Returns?
And Chris?
The Blockbuster. No, Two-Face.
And Kevin?
What was the question?
What was your answer?
What was your answer, Kevin?
What was the question?
I'm gonna play tennis with you. What was the answer?
I didn't have his answer.
What answer did you have?
I said the Penguin.
And your winner, Kevin Smith!
I'm not gonna lie. It was for me personally. I was watching this live during the pay-per-view. RIP to Chadwick. It was a rough moment because I was watching this match and having the time of my life watching Kevin Smith and Chris Jericho when the news broke. But that earnestness of like, what was the question? What was your answer, bruh? No, but like, what was the question? What was your answer, bruh? And he was just like, I mean, the penguin. Like, he wasn't sure of himself, even though he knew it deep down in his heart. So like, it was an absolute honor to watch Kevin Smith and Chris Jericho go at each other, and it's going to be awesome to see both of them get back in the ring at Spectacular. But before we get to that, I got to bring in my guest. This guy was calling in all sorts of times on SCN Live. Then he ended up in the draft. Then in his opening debut in the Inner Geekdom division, he may not have pulled out the win, but he made everybody put some respect on his name. I'm talking about the man that only has one name, and that is none other than Saul. Welcome to the Inner Geekdom Show, brother. How you doing?
Hey, how you doing? It's Saul. How you doing? I'm doing well. Glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course, man. I won't lie, bro. Like, even from those days when I was just starting out guesting on Collider Live, it was so much fun, like, having you call in. You always had something to say, always ribbing Roxy, you know what I'm saying? Like, it was dope. And so it's so cool to see you go from someone calling from, because you're on the East Coast, right? You're in Jersey?
Yeah, I grew up in Jersey, then I moved in, all the way into Manhattan. And then
Okay.
I am now a quarantine refugee. I'm back in Jersey for the time being.
Okay, so to be all the way in Jersey, but you already have become this like smash hit in the Schmoedown universe, dude. It's super, super dope to see that happen. And I know that you, similar to, the Oyamas and the Ellisons and the everything else, that's the kind of stuff that the fans love to watch and go, holy crap, like, I hope I get to be that guy one day. Like, you have already garnered that amount of respect amongst people in this universe, dude. So again, it's an honor to have you on the show. And I saw what you were doing this week, and I asked you about Batman Returns. You're like, son, and you were like, I got the movie on one TV, I got the SNES game on the other TV. Let's go.
Yeah, I was hitting it from all angles, man. There's a lot to chew on this. I mean, we could spend 2 hours talking about everything around the movie and not the actual movie.
Yeah.
Like what it means to comic book movies today, what it meant to the Batman franchise then, what it meant to Tim Burton's career, how its effect on pop culture, its effect on McDonald's, its effect on video game consoles of the 90s, and how many Christmases it ruined or didn't ruin. Mine, I got in that Christmas, I got an Atari Lynx. I wanted the Game Gear. I've never really recovered. I digress. But yeah, Batman Returns is one of the most engaging and funnest movies to talk about. I mean, whether you love it or hate it. I know people who hate this movie who can talk to me about it for hours.
And that's what's so interesting is rewatching it, because I had spoke to you before the show started about how I realized I had never seen Batman Returns from start to finish growing up. It was one of those movies that was on HBO a lot, because HBO used to rerun movies that were on. It would pop up on TV randomly. So I had seen the movie in its entirety, but in segments. It'd be like I happened to see the opening segment, and then I saw when Catwoman and Penguin and Batman all meet at the same time, and then like I saw when the Ice Princess died. You know what I'm saying? I'd seen bits and pieces. So I never knew what order things were coming, but I was like, oh, so this goes here. It was almost like growing up, I watched it like I was watching Pulp Fiction. And then now I finally got to see the linear narrative story of this. But we have a lot to talk about that too, because talk about there not really being a linear narrative going on.
Yeah, it really is a collage. It's a collage of events that kind of are coincidental and cause each other, sort of. And yeah. Not Tim Burton. A common criticism of Burton is that he's not narratively focused, and even Edward Scissorhands is like a lot of his best stuff is loosely narrative focused, but this one he went off the rails. And if you know anything about the history, he got so much. They stayed on him for Batman '89. They really stayed on him, and it was kind of, if you read behind the scenes, Nicholson vouching for him is what kept him on that movie. And when it comes out, no one at Warner Brothers understood it. No one at Warner Brothers really thought they knew what they had. 89 comes out. It's probably the biggest cultural movie since probably Return of the Jedi in terms of pop culture. It hit that big. That Bat logo was everywhere.
Right.
And then the sequel comes around, and then Burton does Edward Scissorhands, and now he's like, maybe I do the sequel, maybe I don't. And now he's got Warner Brothers begging him. He had complete autonomy over the story, over the script, over the movie. So that's why that movie it might be the most Tim Burton movie ever.
Probably. Like, because even Catwoman's outfit, like
Yeah.
the kind of patchwork outfit that she has. Which let's get into it. Let's get into this first part. We call it. Let's break it down. And we're gonna call it. This is about both Batman Returns and the Penguin. So just real quick on the Batman Returns tip of things. Dropped in 1992. Obviously a Tim Burton directed movie, starring Michael Keaton, Danny DeVito, Michelle Pfeiffer, Christopher Walken, Michael Gough, Pat Hingle, and Michael Murphy. It was a budget of 65 to 80. I don't know why there's a range there, but it pulled in about 282.8 million. So it was a hit. It really did well. It comes fresh off the heels, like you said, Batman 89 with Keaton and Nicholson, Batman versus Joker, which was so interesting. And that was the thing. Burton, as most filmmakers will do, took their own liberties with some of the characters. But let's jump into the Penguin. The Penguin, Oswald Chesterfield Cobblepot, is a fictional supervillain appearing in the DC Comics world as an adversary to Batman. Character first made his appearance in Detective Comics 58, December 1941, and was created by Bob Kane and Bill Finger. The Penguin is a Gotham City mobster who fancies himself the gentleman of crime. He's most often seen wearing a monocle, top hat, and tuxedo while carrying his signature umbrella. His umbrella has a tendency to have all sorts of weird high-tech stuff. Like one has a gun, one shoots gas, another one has like swords and knives in it. One can turn into a mini helicopter so he can fly around, all sorts of stuff. He's the owner of a nightclub called the Iceberg Lounge, which provides cover for his criminal activities. So a lot of events and parties will happen there while he's secretly running stuff on the side. Some of his abilities are criminal mastermind, master armed and unarmed combatant, and he utilizes, as we talked about, weaponized umbrellas and other equipment. His notable aliases: the King of Gotham, Ron Cray, the Gentleman of Crime, Matthew Richardson, Mr. Boniface, obviously Oswald Cobblepot, and the Penguin. He's also been a part of the Suicide Squad. I actually didn't know that. That's pretty.
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, and that's the thing. I think all the villains at one point, some of the big ones are kind of in there. You notice that typically the ones that die are the ones that are almost B or C listy. The A-listers always seem to make it out alive. But yeah, man, he's had this weird rivalry with Batman. We've seen it in a number of ways. I don't know if you're a big fan of the Batman, not the movie about to come out, but the TV show that came out, the animated cartoon, like mid 2000s.
That's a blind spot of mine. I was very resentful after the New Adventures of Batman and Robin didn't get renewed.
I agree.
I kind of took it out on that, unfortunately.
I agree, bro. I agree. But like, I what I found interesting about that, he had two like they were like robotic puppets with like crazy nails that were like always like fighting for him and stuff, which was kind of interesting. Seeing him in the Batman Arkham series, same thing. This idea of like, obviously all of the enemies in Batman's Rogues Gallery have their own gangs and stuff, but like the Penguin kind of sticks to the mobster mentality. You know what I'm saying? Like the Joker is a criminal mastermind, but he's not a mobster. He's just chaos. Like Two-Face, like sort of has that there, but his whole idea of like Two-Face justice and stuff that he kind of does there and his duplicity thing, he's less of a mobster in that regard to the way that the Penguin is, who like straight up will go and like whack mob bosses and be like, this is my territory now, which is funny because he comes from money. The Cobblepots are supposed to have been some of the richest people in Gotham, you know, similar to the Waynes. So it's just very interesting to see how the flip side of that, where Bruce, you know, losing his parents and coming from that wealth, goes on the side of justice. Cobblepot, feeling like he don't get no respect on his name because he does look kind of like a little weirdo, decides that he's going to go off and go into you know, criminal mastermind like area. So just talking about the Penguin up top, what do you like about the character? What do you dislike about the character? And then we'll get into his portrayal in Batman Returns.
I love that he's not, he's very, I mean, all of Batman's villains are unorthodox, but he's someone who's not physically threatening at all to Batman, but he's so effective at constantly screwing Batman's plans up of keeping a harmonious city in place. Mm-hmm. And it's I love that contradiction. My favorite interpretation of the character next to Danny DeVito is Burgess Meredith in Batman from the 60s.
Yeah, 66. Yeah.
And because I grew up on I grew up watching that show religiously. I love I love the movie and the TV show. And it was in the movie when Penguin buys a submarine from the U.S. Navy and signs his name on Mr. P.N. Gwynn.
Mm-hmm.
That's when it dawned on me. Oh, wait a minute. I think they're joking around.
Yeah.
And that's kind of when I came online to how that show was supposed to be interpreted.
Right.
And that's my favorite interpretation of him. But the fact that this roly-poly little man with power, who's obsessed with power, keeps kind of screwing with Batman so effectively.
Yeah.
I mean, like you look at somebody like Bane, you look at somebody like Black Mask. These guys who come at Batman in a completely different way. Penguin's just as effective as they are. And that's it's always a good Penguin story is always a good time, especially in the comic form.
1,000%. Because I feel like whereas you have the physically imposing villains of Batman. So like you said, Bane, you brought up Deathstroke, Solomon Grundy. Like these are cats that even Ra's al Ghul, like even though he's ancient as hell, because of the Lazarus pits, he always ends up staying pretty like physically capable to do battle with Batman. You're right. Even though like he does have hand-to-hand training and those umbrellas are pretty dangerous, Penguin isn't dangerous necessarily because he is physically imposing. He is so brilliant. You know what I'm saying? He is a criminal mastermind and can weave plans and all this kind of stuff. That can really throw Bruce off his game if he's not careful. And that's essentially what goes down in Batman Returns. So let's talk about that. So you have this movie here, this follow-up to, 89 Batman, where you're now introducing two characters at once. And Danny DeVito's portrayal is so weird, but so good. And the funny thing is he doesn't necessarily have beef with Batman per se. He eventually does. He more is like, I'm just trying to go get some respect on my name and like blackmail Max Schreck early on. And then ultimately kind of want some revenge because this dude kind of screws him over. You know what I'm saying?
That's as close as we can get to some sort of motivation. Yeah. Batman's the one who gets in his. Batman's the one who starts messing with him. He was minding his business, just simply trying to take over Gotham.
Exactly.
And we have to talk about this. The guy is sex crazed. That's literally the only thing he really wants is to, get laid.
Just to get laid. The whole thing. Because let's think about it. There was the one woman, the PR person. He's talking about. I'm trying to fill her void.
Jen.
There was the Jen. You had the two. You had the three ladies that work on the campaign. He's like, here, have a button. And like, he's like all extra materials he putting on her chest. He tries to holler at Catwoman at one point and gets pissed off where she's not about it. Like
a number of times. Yeah. Yeah.
Like it's hardcore tries to get it to happen. And I feel like if I think about his other, manifestations in other ways, in other media, it tends to also be in that like he's either really thirsty for power or there is this weird kind of sexual element there where he's trying to get some. I think it comes particularly through with this movie and why it was pushed so hard because they decided to make him such a freak. Like he's always kind of short and like a little bit of a roly-poly, maybe does have a little bit of a waddle, like his posture's bad. Like, they didn't have him roly-poly in Gotham, the show that was on Fox, but they did have him have like a bad limp, you know what I mean? And like have bad posture. When you make him essentially like a blend of like the Hunchback of Notre Dame and like Flubber, you know what I'm saying? It doesn't surprise you that like he's just trying to get laid however he can because he feels like a freak. Like he feels like he's a true form.
He really is a true politician. He's grotesque. He's just trying to get laid. And he's nothing like literally Tim Burton, I think, was like, oh, the Penguin's interesting. And then he just went, let's just do something crazy with him. He doesn't look like, resemble, even kind of look, he has nothing to do with any of the comic or movie or TV or any sort of interpretation of that character. He just literally wound up Danny DeVito and let him go. And I wish Danny DeVito had a better written story for him. I feel like that character and if that story was just a little more linear, he might have. I mean, we need to talk about Danny DeVito more in that movie. He really, and he's got the best lines. He really does have some incredible one-liners. And Yeah, I do. Again, I'm very conflicted about this movie. I might talk to you today and you might think, oh, Saul really likes that movie. And then I might talk to you tomorrow and be like, Saul hates that movie. Like, I don't, which makes it so interesting to talk about.
Which I got to say, props to you for being one of the best, like, marketers I've maybe ever seen. Talk about teasing stuff, talking about Mr. Freeze was the Thanos of this Batman universe, because you had like, it wasn't Freeze at that time. It was clearly just Arnold Schwarzenegger shaking hands. But you the fact that you pointed that out, and then Penguin says, stop global warming, start global cooling. Mm-hmm. Like, let's make it all a giant icebox. That was like kind of brilliant for you to point that out. And I was like, bro, way to tease what's really going on here.
I think that they wanted that from the beginning. I think there was some masterminds going on at Warner Brothers, and they succeeded wildly in that regard, because we eventually got Mr. Freeze, aka Thanos of DC, and everyone loves that movie. So,
I mean, look, do they love Batman Forever, Batman?
No, of course not.
I do,
really,
but that's nostalgia. That is purely because you're a child when this happens, and like, you're like, Jim Carrey's my favorite comedian at the time, like fresh off of like Ace Ventura. So him coming in as Riddler was amazing. Robin was my favorite superhero, because like, as a kid, you're like, all right, well, like, it's a bunch of adults with superpowers, but like, what if this kid is doing this? Like, I can relate to that. You know what I mean?
Well, Robin was supposed to be they were supposed to introduce him in Batman Returns.
I remember
they were supposed to introduce him, and they actually cast Marlon Wayans.
Really?
They cast Marlon. Yeah, you don't know this story? It's a great story.
I knew that Robin was supposed to be in the movie. I did not know they cast Marlon Wayans. That's crazy.
Do you remember when the Batmobile gets he turns it into the torpedo conveniently to get through the alley?
Yeah.
So he hires a mechanic, and like, one of these like orphan mechanics is going to be Marlon Wayans. He's going to become Robin. They're going to introduce him in Returns, and then he's going to get Batman and Robin, Batman Forever rather. Mm-hmm. He signs a pay or play contract.
Oh no, I know those.
Marlon Wayans did not play Robin in Batman Returns or Batman Forever, so he got a check, and he has points. He has points on either Returns or on Forever. He still gets paid for not playing Robin. And one of the things, and this is people point this out, they released a Robin action figure for Batman Returns.
Okay.
Even though he's not in the movie.
Right.
And if you look at that Robin action figure and you pull up a picture of Marlon Wayans from like Mo Money.
Yeah.
You can tell that was supposed to be a Marlon Wayans action figure, and they painted him white.
Wow.
Yeah. If you want to Google that when you get a moment.
I will when this is over. Dwayne, did you know this?
I had no idea that this happened.
Google Batman Returns Robin and Marlon Wayans Mo Money and put them next to each other, and I'm telling you, you're crazy if they're not the same person.
Robin. All right, let's see. Okay, I may not even need to pull it up. I may just be able to tell just by, bro, that is clearly Marlon Wayans.
That was absolutely supposed to be him, and they just painted him white and released him anyway.
Holy crap, bro.
Yeah.
The more you know. Wow.
Well, hey, look, I'm just happy Marlon Wayans keeps getting paid for not doing a movie. That's kind of a cool story.
That's the dream, bro, is that you don't have to do work and you get paid for it because someone sort of screwed you. They didn't like technically screw him. It just didn't work out that way. But, you know, you're looking forward to being a part of like that would be huge. You're talking about one of the biggest superhero duos ever. Like, Batman is the biggest superhero in the world. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. And you're going to play his sidekick, and then it just doesn't happen. Like, yeah, get that money, bro. Like 1,000%.
And that would have been, there is allegedly somewhere in a vault somewhere at Warner Brothers, there's photos of him in a Robin costume because he actually got fitted for the costume. That's how far it went. And then that's how close they were to shooting. That's how close they were in pre-production before they yanked him.
This is why I hate sometimes this industry. You get so excited about things and they just get swept out from under you. You know what I mean? Like, fortunately, Marlon had an amazing career after that. Mm-hmm. But like, can you imagine if like that's that point, you're on your way and you're thinking this is it, this is like my minute, and then it just disappears? Like, man, that would be absolutely crazy. Yeah. But let's get into our next segment, our deep dive, Christmas movie or nah. So this is the Die Hard debate, essentially. It is one that has gone on for years. What constitutes a Christmas movie? Does Santa have to be in the movie? Do presents have to be exchanged? Does Christmas Day have to be present, or can you just be in the general season? Does Christmas have to be plot centric or not? Like, can it just be a part of the story? Normally, y'all know I kind of write out my thoughts here, but I just wanted to get right into this debate with Saul and Dwayne and with y'all. So if you want to know specifically what, you can send in whatever you want to the oracles, your oracles and your super chats. But this is a conversation we're really going to talk about going forward, is what constitutes a Christmas movie. So very famously, the Die Hard debate rings true. Batman Returns is another one. Now, this is very clearly a Christmas movie in my mind, because this is how I define a Christmas movie personally. And then Saul, you can give your take. Christmas does not have to be central to the plot. It does have to be a major part of the story, though. For those that are trying to understand what the difference is, the plot specifically, the through line moving forward about what makes the characters go, et cetera, versus the general story of like what's happening. Now, mind you, Die Hard, for example, does not happen if it's not Christmas. There is a holiday party that is happening at this building. The only reason that Bruce Willis is at, or John McClane is showing up to Los Angeles to see his wife, who he's estranged from, is because it's Christmas and he's trying to work crap out with her. So if you don't have those two things as a part, like that is the only reason that building is being hijacked with those people in there at that exact time, et cetera, et cetera. So that makes it a Christmas movie. Batman Returns, same thing. It may not be plot centric that Christmas is happening, but the lighting of the Christmas tree, that is like a big moment where the Ice Princess gets murdered. That is a huge element of the story. The fact that you are just talking about the Christmas stuff in general, the exchanging of gifts, the holiday meals, etc., that is all a part of the major part of the story. Maybe not the plot, but the story. So that in itself makes it a Christmas movie. Saul, do you agree? Do you disagree? How do you define a Christmas movie?
Well, by your parameters, I agree with you. But I think I might take the stance that Batman Returns is the most Christmassy non-Christmas movie ever.
Interesting.
I do think it has to be plot-based, but it does seem like there's so much Christmas in this movie. It does seem silly to say it's not. Yeah. I mean, there's 2 Christmas tree lightings.
Yes.
There's not 1, but 2.
Yes.
I mean, there's Christmas presents everywhere. Christmas shopping. We catch Bruce and Selena Christmas shopping.
Yep.
But it's not like Christmas, like Die Hard. I do agree. That whole movie happens because it's Christmas. It's a Wonderful Life happens because that happens at Christmas, because he's giving up because it's Christmas. And Scrooged is a Christmas movie. Mm-hmm. I don't know. Could you do Batman Returns during the 4th of July? Could you do Batman Returns during Arbor Day?
I mean, during Arbor Day. That's a solid point. I think you do take some of it away, like you said, that the fact that Serena goes Christmas shopping with Bruce at one point is like kind of a big deal. Like you even have in the first scene we see of Alfred is up doing the Wayne Manor tree. You know what I'm saying? So like, could you get away without it being there? In theory, you could. I think one of the big things that's going on, there's 2 things. First of all, he's trying to run for mayor after the mayor has already been elected. So it needed to be kind of close within to recall him like that. So I think that's a big element. I also think because he's showing up to be like, I want to find out my family. Like that's also a spirit, like the spirit of the season is the idea that like people are more forgiving. They're more generous at that time. So people are more willing to allow this quote unquote freak. Oh, we should welcome with open arms. He's not some freak from a sewer. He's just a guy that his parents abandoned him. That's so sad. Like blah, 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 blah. That probably doesn't happen on 4th of July. Nobody on 4th of July is like, nah, man, no, you ugly as hell. Like, yeah, you go in. No, ain't nobody doing that. But the Christmas season, the holiday season, people are more like, give him a chance, man. Like, give him a chance. You know what I'm saying? So I think that still is needed for the story to kind of help massage some of these ideas that are happening throughout the movie. You can write around it, but if you want to keep the same feels, you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, and that brings up an interesting point of how he's pretty much evil Edward Scissorhands.
Yes.
He's pretty much that, like, there's a fork in the road at the end of Edward Scissorhands, and Edward goes into exile. At this fork of the road, Penguin goes, you know what? All your kids are dead, and I'm gonna blow up your party with my duck car. So yeah, aside from that, they're very similar characters.
That's fair. That's fair. I will give you that. So then this brings up my question. So there's a number that are on the table of random movies that people do or don't consider Christmas movies. So for example, Iron Man 3 is very much a Christmas movie. Like, people want to say that it's not, but let's remember, Tony gives a massive gift to Pepper that becomes like a massive point of contention because he's like kind of screwing up. He also ends up helping that little boy, Harley ends up helping him in that town. And Iron Man, at the end of it, like as a Christmas present, sets him up with a whole workshop at the end of the film. You know what I'm saying? So there's a number of elements with heck, even when the president is held up hostage, he is held up by a string of Christmas lights. You know what I'm saying? So
William Sadler,
yeah. So to me, that's a Christmas movie. Shazam very clearly is a Christmas movie that is also taking place. That one for sure, because Santa is throughout that one talking about it's a demon, it's the devil. So like you can't really get around that one. What do you think, man? Does this also kind of ring true for you for these movies? Is there one that maybe people don't consider a Christmas movie that you're like, it definitely is?
I'm firmly in the Die Hard is a Christmas movie debate. I'm firmly on the side of Die Hard is, because again, you take Christmas away from Die Hard, it doesn't happen.
Right.
So there you go.
Right.
If you take Christmas away from Iron Man 3, does it still happen?
That's why I was saying I think it's more story based than plot based.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying? It drives a lot of the spirit of the movie. So it is him, trying to like reconcile with Pepper because he does piss her off early on because he's making all the suits and he's kind of trapped in his workshop. He does end up going and helping that kid out. The whole moment with Happy ending up in a coma and like him coming back out of it. Like there's this element of like family and the spirit of Christmas and all that is in the film, even though we don't ever go, Merry Christmas, everyone. And to all like, because Tony even gives himself that present of finally getting the surgery and getting the shrapnel pulled out of his own heart. Like he even says that in his like last little monologue of like, I needed to start over. I needed a fresh thing. So that was my Christmas. But he even said, here's another early Christmas present to you, Pepper, at the end of that fight. And he does the clean slate protocol. You know what I'm saying? So there's a lot of references to giving gifts and the spirit of that. So I think that is kind of ringing true. I get the main thing is aim and, the what was it called? I just watched this movie. Hold on. Don't tell me. Go ahead and tell me.
I don't know.
The thing that they inject that AIM injects into people that makes them those like, thank you, the Extremist Project. Like, I know that's the main thing, the Mandarin not being the Mandarin, but there's so much Christmas talk throughout. I think that it counts. What about Shazam? How do you feel about that one?
Yeah, I'm more along the lines that, before we leave Iron Man 3.
Yeah.
Iron Man 3 really is kind of a Christmas carol in the MCU. Now that I think about it, whereas Tony is sort of Scrooge and the kids like Tiny Tim.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's
it is a giant metaphor for
that's they're very similar now that I'm thinking about it. And then at the end he gives away the goose and then he blows up his suit, which lasts 20 minutes, but still it's the thought that counts, I guess. I actually have no problem with that. I think you have to, when you're a filmmaker and you're making when you're making one part of a giant franchise, you have to tell the story that's in front of you. It's like winning a football season. It's like you got to win one game at a time, and I don't blame them for that. I know it went away literally a few months later, but still, I think that's how they bet. That was the best way to end that film according to them. So I'll default to the filmmaker. So I don't think that's a big of a deal. Shazam, I think, is a Christmas movie. That to me, it feels. I don't know. Maybe I'm hypocritical. Maybe I'm inconsistent. I don't know. It just feels. Yeah, it sort of feels like they come together because it's Christmas, or maybe I'm inferring that.
You know what it is, and I think this is the element that we're looking for right here. Most Christmas movies are not really about presents. They're not really about, and it's always comes down to family. If you honestly think about it, I know a lot of movies have that element, but Christmas movies in particular always kind of comes down to family. So like Home Alone, I hate all of you. I wish I was by myself. It would be amazing. And then all of a sudden his family's gone. He's like, I really wish I had my family because they're trying to kill me and whatnot. Like Iron Man, him reconciling with Pepper, him reconciling with Rhodey, him trying to, he connects with this kid. The fact that he talks about his past problems, and he created AIM as his own demon. Because if he had helped old girl develop extremists, then maybe she doesn't go to AIM. If he doesn't disrespect Killian, then maybe Killian doesn't make it his life mission to destroy Tony. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, there's a number of little elements there that he learns that family and being kind to people is important.
He lets go of his materialism
Mm-hmm.
and embraces Pepper and Rhodey. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I think it's a great Christmas movie. Now that you're kind of talking me into it.
Right, and so Shazam, that one's an easy gimme. I mean, Billy just wants to find his birth parents and like what he perceives as his family when he actually accepts the family that he is adopted into. And so that to me, if the more I think about Christmas movies, that's kind of what that is. People are mentioning in the chat Hook being a Christmas movie, and I would agree with that in the sense that like that is the story base. At the end, he not only has respect and love for the Lost Boys that he left, that family, but then he comes back and like he had been working his butt off all the time, and all of a sudden he's a good dad. You know what I mean? It is the lesson learned of how you become better with your family, and I think that is kind of what holiday movies and not just Christmas. I know there's not a lot of Hanukkah movies. I was actually asking about this, but I think about like 8 Crazy Nights, like that. Right. Same thing. He stopped being a degeneraate, and then he starts having love for not only the girl he had a crush with, but the whole town, and like for the little short dude that he like hangs out with in the whole movie. I can't remember his name though, to save my life.
Yeah, it's not IG. It's off my radar. I don't. December 1, non-IG movies go off my radar permanently till the season's over next year. So
hey,
that's what I did last year, and that's what I'm doing it again. So I only ingest. I'll let some Mandalorian in.
Mm-hmm.
And
well, there's rumors that might make it into Star Wars, and if it makes it into Star Wars, it would probably make it into IG.
Yeah. So all right. So I guess I'm accidentally falling into it anyway. But yeah, no, I won't watch any movie that's not IG anymore. So
wow, good for you. We'll get to that. We'll get to that part for sure. But let's go into our next segment, which is the From a Cat in a Tree to a Newt. So you hear this question: who is running for mayor of Gotham City in Batman Returns? What would you rank this question from 1 to 10, man?
0.5. It's a very easy question.
I think so.
Yeah.
Considering they said the name villain,
yeah,
or they said the term villain. There's really only 3 villains in this movie. Catwoman clearly is not running for office. You would argue it's either Max Schreck or Penguin. And to my knowledge, Max Schreck isn't that big of a name in the Batman lore, not compared to the Penguin at least. He
was created for this movie.
Right. That's what I thought.
He was supposed to be Billy D. He was supposed to be Harvey Dent. Did
Billy D just decide he didn't want to do another movie?
I've never gotten a straight answer as to who did what. I know he was I think Billy D. Williams got a check for Batman Forever. I think he was another one who got a check for not playing a part.
So they decided to get rid of Harvey. So then when they decided to bring Harvey back, they were like, all right, here's your money. Oh, man.
Yeah, I think because Shrek was supposed to be Harvey Dent in the early, and there was 3 screenwriters who worked on it. There was Sam Hamm, who wrote the original Batman. And then there was Daniel Waters, I think is his name, was another guy who worked with Burton a lot in the 90s.
Mm-hmm.
He rewrote it, and he wrote Harvey became I forget why Billy D got written out. Or maybe they punted on him. Maybe they thought they would bring him in the next one. I don't remember.
Mm-hmm.
But at the end, where Selena kisses Max, and then he electrocutes him to death, that was how the Two-Face was going to occur. That was going to be the origin of how Two-Face, and that was going to set up the next movie. They actually did think this out. They had Robin Cup. They were going to set up Robin subtly. They were going to set up Two-Face subtly. And I don't know what the hell happened. I think it was probably when Burton just took over. Again, they gave him they had to give him autonomy to bring him back. So I think he probably just maybe he punted on it for some reason, or I'm not sure. But I know it was definitely supposed to be Harvey Dent in the original drafts.
Man, dude, that's so crazy to think that's how that worked. That's actually that there was this own little just franchise through line, which would have been super dope to see. So is this a question that you study for? Or you're just like, you know it off top because it's just so central to the film.
No, I don't want to sound arrogant, but
Go ahead.
no, it's not a question I would really have to note going, oh, gee, I better make sure I remember that. That's no, right. That's a very, in my assessment, look, every competitor is going to be different. Kevin Smets, Chandru, Ben Goddard, they're all going to take every question differently than I take it. We all have different viewing habits growing up, studying habits. So we're all going to have, a 5-pointer to me is going to be a 2-pointer to Ben Goddard. It's going to be a 3-pointer to Kevin, But for me, that's one of the easiest questions I've ever heard. And I'm happy Jersey's Kevin Smith brought it home on that one.
There you go, bro. It's funny. There's a number of matches where that's happened where like a 5-pointer to me, and I'm like, I have no earthly idea. And there's a match that happened this year that the 5-pointer happened, and I literally was livid. I was like, how in the hell is that a 5-point question? And then someone was like, I had no idea. I've seen that movie one time, and I was like, oh yeah. And then that's the thing. It's very subjective, and I think that's why I say that all the time, and I defend PJ and the writing team. Some, maybe if you want to make an argument, okay, maybe that's a little too easy in certain elements, but for the most part, it is completely subjective. So to just say that that's not a 5-point question is silly based off of that. But let's go ahead and go. We know that this wasn't hard for you, so I'm gonna see if I can stump you on another tip. Our next segment, the 10-pointer. That's where I give you 5 questions related to what we're talking about Batman Returns. Let's see how you do. We have had people as bad as 1.5. And we've had as good as what Rachel got 4.
How do you get half?
Because I'm looking for something very specific, and I'm giving, especially because it's the holiday season. So like, if you're in the ballpark, I might give you like half a point. But all right, let's go ahead and get into it. You feeling good? You feel ready?
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1. Who does Batman stop first in the film, and how does he do it?
Out of the 2 main villains?
Just period. He fights a lot of people in this film. So who is the first enemy, villain, whatever, that he stops, and how does he do it?
Upon arriving in Gotham Plaza, he trips the stilt walker from the Red Triangle Gang with the Batmobile. He has like a little thing that shoots out from the side. I don't know the name of it.
That's a point. Let's go. Okay, well done, sir. I thought that might be the one that trips you up because maybe you weren't paying attention to that moment, but well done. All right, question number 2. Penguin has 3 key pieces of evidence to blackmail Max Schreck into helping him. What are they?
He has the taped up documents proving that Max Schreck owns half the fire traps in Gotham.
Okay.
There's a pool of toxic waste from his clean textile plant in the back.
Okay.
And he has the dead body of his old partner, Fred Atkins.
That's another point. Somebody out here trying to embarrass all these other former champions and finalists and all sorts of stuff. All right, bro. Question number 3. What are the names of the Penguin's parents in Batman Returns?
Tucker Cobblepot is Penguin's father. He's played by Paul Rubens. Esther Cobblepot is his mother, played by Diane Salinger.
That's another point, bro. Gosh, dang. All right, bro. Here we go. Question number 4. What kind of rattle does Oswald have as a baby?
You mean the one hanging from his cage?
Mm-hmm.
It's a duck.
There is a very he specifically says what type of rattle he had.
Oh,
5, 4, 3.
Tiffany
2.
rattle?
Whoo, the buzzer. A Tiffany rattle. That is correct.
Yeah.
He does indeed have a Tiffany rattle, sir. Well done. All right, here's your last question. And to be honest with you, I think you're going to get it. And you might be the first person in INNERGEEKDOM history to get all 5 questions right. Who is the first person in Batman Returns that the Penguin personally attacks?
Max Shrek.
That's incorrect. He doesn't actually directly attack Shrek. He does kidnap him, but he doesn't attack him. It's Josh, the image consultant. He bites his nose off.
Oh, I'm challenging that.
I said personally. That's what I'm saying, though, is that he may have had the gang go get him, but the only person that he first attacks is Josh, the image consultant. But that's
I'm going to be DMing my friend PJ after this to see what I think.
Bro,
I think an attack would be having someone kidnapped. You could say that would be.
But he didn't personally do it. He didn't knock him out and drag him. That's why I said personally. So like,
but he did shoot a blank at him with the umbrella. Isn't that sort of an attack?
No, because he's messing with him. Like he went for, when I say attack, and you know what I mean, you're out to harm somebody. He was clearly screwing around with Shrek because he needed to use him. But that's still not a bad answer. You still could have used. There's a couple things here. First of all, you technically could challenge that. Depending on who's judging, you might be able to win that. But more importantly, you tied Rachel Cushing, bro. You tied Rachel Cushing for the most answered questions in the 10-pointer. So round of applause, y'all. Give it up for Saul. Let's go. I mean, look, I think you just put yourself on notice to all the managers in the Schmoedown about trying to see if they can deal for you or draft you or whatever's going on this season, man, because that was impressive.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Feels good to answer questions again. Wow. That's fun.
Hey man. That's one of the parts that it's funny. There's a few guests that have been like, I want to come on the show, but I don't want to answer no questions. But most of them are like, I'm actually kind of curious about this to see how well especially when I'm like, this is the movie we're talking about. Like I've given you a heads up about that so you can go and watch it and take as many notes and see what ridiculous crap I would potentially ask. All right, so before we move on to interviewing you a little bit and answering any Streamlabs, and we do have a video question this week, which is super dope. I just want to do a couple of plugs. First of all, $10 patrons, like I said, we do have a video question being sent in today. $10 patrons and above of the Schmoedown. You can send in your questions to be played on air to schmoedownpatreon@gmail.com. That's schmoedownpatreon@gmail.com. You send those in. We will play them during the show and answer your question live. So definitely be sure to do that. This week, let's see. I wanted to check in and see who all had stuff. No news yet from Backstage, but be sure to check out Backstage this week. Dan Murrell, ironically, is doing Die Hard this week on All My Movies on Wednesday. So definitely check that out. It will also be a part of the Skybound Expo. So you don't want to miss that at all. On coming up next, let's see. Coming up next, Jen and why did all of a sudden I forget Brad Gilmore's name? I'm so sorry, Brad. Jen and Brad are going to be breaking down Spectacular that happens this Saturday. So don't miss coming up next for that reason, but then do not miss Spectacular 5. This is 6 of the craziest matches that we've seen all season. You have the Star Wars belt being defended by Alex Damon with my boy Ace trying to take it from him. We'll see if he can finish that magical Cinderella story that he had back in the summer. You have Jericho versus Brittany Young, another celebrity exhibition, not an exhibition match. It's worth points, but like these two celebrities are coming in. You know, they're both, I believe, 0-1 because Brittany lost, right, Dwayne? So they're both 0-1. So they're trying to get a win on the season before they get out of here. Then you have the INNERGEEKDOM match of Chandru the Chosen, with Swag defending the belt against Chance Ellison, the surprise winner of the IG tournament. You have what is that for Chance? Is that what that is? Dwayne, I will kick you off this show. How dare you, sir?
It's for the match.
Just for the match. All right, you watch yourself, okay? You on thin ice, sir. Then you have Kevin Smith versus Brett Sheridan, the battle of the undefeated. Will Kevin Smith, good enough Kevin Smith, will he be able to create that magic again? Or will the sniper Sheridan actually show you what he's made of and put down the celebrity? We also have the teams match. Shazam is defending against the Odd Couple. Spoiler alert, if you haven't seen the end of the teams tournament, that's on you at this point because Spectacular is on Saturday. So you don't want to miss that. Will Jeff Snyder go down as one of the greatest tag team Schmoedown competitors in history, or will Shazam bolster up
Brynjar Ellison donated $20.
Thank
I
you.
feel like Home Alone could work well if it was set during summer or something. There's nothing incredibly Christmassy about it, but I do love it and watch it a lot during Christmas.
I will counter that in just a second once I finish these plugs. So you don't want to miss that to see if Shazam can hold on to those titles, or will they change hands yet again this season? And finally, the Wonder Boy, Adam Collins, who went 7-0 in the tournament in order to get to this match against Dan Murrell. Will he finish the job and take that belt and become the champion? Or will Dan Murrell, the GOAT, defend once again the singles belt title? You don't want to miss these 6 incredible matches. $10 patrons get the spectacular automatically. Or if you're not that, you can go to Schmoedown Live and buy your tickets. Otherwise, those matches will roll out one match at a time throughout the month of December. So you can also check for that as well. But I'm going to tell you, you don't want to wait. You want to see these as soon as possible. Trust me. Don't forget your So Sorry Lex shirts. Be sure to pick those up. And of course, the Smash Cancer hoodies that all the proceeds are going to Kevin Smith. So definitely check all those out. All right. Before we get to the interview with you, Saul, one, do you have anything to plug?
Yeah, I'm doing, look, I've turned down a lot of the reactor shows and interview opportunities. It's just not really what I'm looking for most of the time. But I figured 'tis the season. It's spectacular week. And I was inspired by you inviting me on to here. I was very flattered by that. And I also now can't tell a lot of people who've been asking me to come on their show. I don't do shows because here I am. So I'm going to be doing interviews all week. Tomorrow, you can catch me on the Let's Get Ready to Talk Schmoedown Network. I'll be doing a live interview with them at around 8 o'clock. Wednesday, you can catch me sorting out Jay Wade on SEN After Live. Him and his pal Dean Lewis. They do a show about SEN. I'm going to go in there and talk some trash with them. Thursday, I'm getting interviewed by my co-host and faction mate and friend, Rachel Silvestrini, on the Rachel Silvestrini YouTube channel. On Friday, I will be hosting the Mandalorian After Show on the Gucciverse YouTube channel. And then almost immediately thereafter, me, Bobby Gucci, and Kaiser, Late Night with Gucci and Kaiser. I am very happy to be doing that for the first time. And then Saturday, spectacular. I'm going to be jumping in and out of streams, probably messing around with the Let's Get Ready people and other people that day too. I'm very excited for Spectacular. I'm trying to recreate the excitement of being there last year, sitting in my room.
Dude, that was the Spectacular last year was so much fun. It was a little embarrassing for me because my birthday was earlier that week. So I had a party that Friday. So I showed up hung over as sin to the Spectacular, and all these friends were like, yo, Winston was good. And I was like, oh God, this is too much. Like it was, as I started to like kind of bring it back down, like it was just a lot of fun to be able to meet all those people, the excitement of like introducing the factions. It was fun working the crowd. Like some people seem to be like, all right, this swag thing sounds interesting. But most people are like, whatever, the Finstock Exchange, the Horsemen, like everybody, I'm like, and now look at you with your egg on your face. So it was a lot of fun. So I will look forward to when we can do live events again. Who knows, depending on how all this vaccine stuff works out. But it was a lot of fun. So if you can recreate that magic, more power to you, man. And you're one hell of an interview. I'm gonna be real with you. Like you've been.
Oh, thank you. It means a lot. I like to. I think a more is less, or less is more rather.
Fair. More is less. I mean, that's also kind of true.
That's technically also my idea, but what I meant to say was less is more. I think you can. Yeah, I mean, I think it's more interesting if you only show up when you got something to say, And also the way people like to ask me about the way I dress. It's very simple philosophy: is if people are going to have to look at you, give them something to see. Give them something worth looking at. You failed today. You didn't do that. You wore that nonsense. You should be embarrassed.
Yeah. I mean, 5 rings overall. I'm not saying this year. There's nothing to be proud about this year.
How about the New York Giants got 4 rings? They're going to be a tough out going up to the rest of the year.
I mean, they will, but like, let's be honest. You ain't got Eli. You ain't got Strahan. They ain't gonna bail you out. So you'll win the division. I'll give you all that. After beating the Seahawks, you'll win the division, but you ain't going to do much after that.
I don't know. It's a weird year. It's a weird year.
It is a weird year. That's true. I just don't think Colt McCoy is going to get you a Super Bowl ring. I'm just going to be real with you.
I don't think we're going to see Colt again this year, but I do tip my cap to the man. Thank you very much. We appreciate it. And Yeah, look, with no Daniel Jones, no Saquon Barkley, and they march into Seattle and do something that Eli and Coughlin had trouble with for 15 years.
Yeah.
So that was, I was blown away by that.
Brownie points for sure. But let's talk sports all the time. Let's stick to what we're talking about. So I believe the Schmoebot, I mean the Oracle said that Home Alone, there's a feeling that it could be done outside of Christmas. I think I gotta disagree with that pretty strongly. Other than fact that, because part of it is it's not just like making a random way. He's like, you know what I want for Christmas? I want to be alone. Part of the reason why he gets left, I'm not saying you don't have vacations during the summer, but that was the whole thing, that the family wants to do Christmas in Paris. Then they want to do Christmas in Florida because then it's not cold and wet. It's supposed to be warm outside. So like it has to kind of focus around Christmas because the whole family has to have time off. Like that he would be left there, and that the meaning of Christmas is family, essentially, is what that boils down to. You know what I'm saying? The fact that the Sticky Bandits or the Wet Bandits, depending on which movie you're talking about, they are stealing Christmas gifts or the Christmas donation money from the Duncan's toy chest.
Yeah, that doesn't make any sense plot-wise.
Yeah, it has to happen during Christmas.
Yeah, plus you have to remember, if some kid said, do you know what I want this summer? I want to be alone. Everyone watching that movie would look at it and go, yeah, all right. I would, when I was a kid, I didn't want to be bothered during summer.
I want to go swim in the pool and like eat pizza and talk to nobody.
Yeah. Specifically, it's during Christmas is when everyone should be coming together and renewing each other's faith in humanity and loving each other and accepting your family, even though they're, goofy. And no, yeah, Home Alone can't work in summer.
What gets him in trouble in the first movie? Because in the second movie, I remember he was at the pageant and Buzz was messing with him. So he shoved Buzz and then ruined the Christmas pageant. So he had to sleep in the attic. I remember that. Do you remember what happened in the first movie that he got in trouble?
He did something to anger his uncle because he grabs him and goes, "Now look what you did, you little jerk."
Yeah.
I remember that line.
Yeah.
I don't remember what he did. He ruin dinner somehow?
Maybe he ruined dinner. Maybe that's what it was.
Because Buzz ate his pizza.
Right.
He only eats plain pizza and Buzz ate it.
Right.
But I think because it's Chicago pizza, Buzz did him a favor, and but he didn't see it that way. I forget what he does. He does something snotty
that gets him in trouble. And if I'm not mistaken, he has to sleep in the attic again. Like that, he keeps ending up being left in the attic, and that's why nobody sees him because otherwise he shares rooms with the cousins. So maybe it was the pizza. Maybe he did something there that did it. But that was the whole point. Is like he had to be separated so the family forgot to make sure he was in the car. You know what I mean? So
and it's depressing as hell to be alone on Christmas. It would be compoundedly depressing to be a child to be alone on Christmas. Again, summer vacation by yourself. That's not a dilemma. That's called wish fulfillment.
But also remember some of the other things that happen. I know Home Alone 3. I know a lot of people don't love that movie. I thought it was fun, but Scarlett Johansson's in that movie. That was actually one of her first films that she did.
I never partook in 3. I didn't know that she was in that.
Dwayne is shaking his head at me. Look, man, Home Alone 3 is a fun movie.
That movie is a travesty.
Hey, man, it's all right. But like one of the
Russian
things there,
Russian microchips. Come on.
Yeah, dude, come on. You know what I'm saying? Like it's just terrorists just trying to get microchips to help with missiles. It's fine.
Terrorists? What the hell?
There are 4 terrorists that are trying to help with an arms deal. And Alex, what was the name of the kid? His name in this movie is Alex.
Are you sure you're not talking about Die Hard 3?
I promise. Home Alone 3.
Sounds like a Die Hard movie.
Home Alone 3, bro. But like, and Scarlett Johansson, she's the older sister. You know what? Get out of here. But specifically in that is like, remember, there's ice storms. So part of the reason why she can't get back, if it's the middle of the summer, they live on the East Coast. You know what I'm saying? So like what magical, or they live in Chicago. Chicago doesn't have hurricanes. All right. So like you needed weather to screw up because remember, she can't get on a flight to get back. She cannot get back. So she gets back to New York and then they're like, well, I can drive you. And she rides with the polka people, but all the flights are grounded because there's too much bad weather in Chicago. So like it also needs to take place during the winter. You know what I'm saying? Like there's a lot of little things because otherwise think about that. If your parents left you by yourself in Paris, it's an expensive flight to get back, but your behind is on the very first flight back to Chicago to get to your child. Like the only reason she can't get there, she has to drive is because of the weather. So
yeah, I don't like it. I'm with you.
All right, so we got a couple things to do. So first, let's do you have the video queued up with the question, Dwayne?
Yes, I do.
Okay, why don't we go ahead and play that real quick, and then we will answer that question.
Cool. We'll knock that one out first.
What's going on, guys? Dagan Asperog here with a question for Winston and my man Saul. This is more of a general question for the 3 Nolan Batman movies, as it is more specific for Batman Begins. But it's, which classic Batman villain would you have liked to see in a Christopher Nolan Batman movie if the franchise had continued under his vision? I know there were some rumors about maybe Johnny Depp as the Riddler. I don't know if that would have worked as much, but I would like to see someone like Paul Giamatti as the Penguin. I think that would have been kind of cool for this sort of darker, grittier tone that Nolan was going for. Hope you guys have a good one, and swag, swag, drip, drip, baby.
Dagan, thank you so much for the question. That's a good one. I think you have to go, because remember, Nolan didn't go for the supernatural element. He wanted this to be grounded and real. And all of like Scarecrow makes sense because that's an hallucinogen. You could feasibly make the whole fear toxin a real thing. He got rid of the Lazarus pits and just made it seem like, you know what, he saved Raish. You know what I mean? So that you got rid of that. Bane didn't have venom. He just had I guess whatever opiates were in his mask to help him with his pain tolerance. So that's a good question. What do you think, man? What are you feeling?
I think after 3 movies, let's say, so hypothetically, this is the 4th Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
We finally up the stakes because there are supernatural and uncanny elements to Batman villain.
Right.
Clayface, Mr. Freeze, and my choice would have to be Man-Bat.
Interesting.
You do almost a horror movie. I don't even know who I'd want to play him. Johnny Depp would also be a good Man-Bat if you're familiar with the lore.
Yeah, for sure.
But I feel like that's recency bias because I just heard his name. Jude Law could be Man-Bat. Something about like a really kind of like handsome dude getting screwed up and becoming a mutant giant bat. That's a nice contradiction for you. Mm-hmm. But I love that character. It's also the debut. It was also the first villain in Batman the Animated Series. Was on Leather Wings. Was the first episode.
I remember.
I would love to see Man-Bat. And then now that we've opened the door to uncanny or supernatural, maybe, then we get Lawrence Fishburne as Mr. Freeze.
I don't hate that. If I'm gonna go with Dwayne, do you have a?
Yeah, I don't know who would have played him, but I think if we were talking about a 4th Nolan film, I would have liked to explore the Red Hood, and maybe in that gap in between The Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises is when so we never actually get to see Robin, but we found out that there was a Robin.
That would have been interesting. I would have liked that a lot too. I like the idea that Nolan decided to keep this grounded and realistic. So I would have gone for a villain that maybe you don't have to go into the supernatural element, but I agree with you, raise the stakes. So I like the idea, like we've already kind of uncovered some conspiracies in this already. Why don't we go the Court of Owls? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That could have been really like have a Talon and a Court of Owls type situation. That would have been amazing. Riddler.
They're very Nolan-esque. The Court of Owls is almost like a Nolan plot.
Because he loves to do that hidden agenda, secret society, all that kind of stuff. I think that could be really interesting, especially with the standpoint that Bruce doesn't really deal so much with like his family name or his legacy in that regard. But put him in a situation now where you're dealing with the elites of Gotham and he has to kind of like figure out how to deal with that. I think that could really be super, super interesting. I think a Mad Hatter could be interesting. Some sort of technology that allows for mind control. Someone mentioned that in the chat. I think Mad Hatter could have been good. Riddler would have been great. I'm trying to think if there's anybody else off top. Maybe like an Azrael. Like, because, you know, Azrael kind of comes in as like because remember at the end of Returns, he's like, I'm retired. And like he went off with Selena and did his thing. So if the next one picks up and there's this idea that Gotham still needs a savior, and then we kind of set up that Azrael comes in as Batman and then Bruce has to come out of retirement because this dude is taking it too far. I think that also could be really interesting too.
That would be very good. Yeah, that actually works perfectly. I also attest that there's nothing definitive happened at the end of Returns, like
or Rises or Return or
Dark Knight Rises. Dark Knight Rises, rather.
Yeah.
Nothing that could not be like written away in the first 5 minutes of the film. Like you can get Bruce back alive. You could just say we thought Bruce Wayne had died, but it turns out it was just in the chaos of everything that was going on. He's alive and well. And then you just bring him back to Gotham and then Batman. But you could fix anything that happened at the end of that movie in about 5 minutes of screen time.
I think he did that on purpose, though. I think he did it as like here's your happy ending, but if in the off chance that I want to do this again or the studio wants to do this again, we have an out.
Well, they offered Bale the role of Batman in Batman vs Superman.
Did they really?
Yeah, they offered him $50 million, and he's just like, I'm into Oscars now.
Yeah, well, and that's the sad part. You can get an Oscar doing it, but like the Academy is still just so rude about it. Like the fact that of all of the DC and the Marvel worlds, the only Oscars that have been won for the Joker is kind of crazy to me, no pun intended. Like I don't necessarily think that that Christian Bale did anything mind-blowing Oscar worthy, but you could have figured out how to do that. I think if you end up with a Court of Owls where Bruce is actually terrified and feels like he's going crazy while dealing with this, you could potentially pull that performance out of him. You know what I mean? But I also get it. I don't think you're going to get it out of Batman v Superman based off of how that movie turned out. I don't think you're earning an Oscar as Batman for that. Like I'm trying to think if any of those roles could have won an Oscar in Batman v Superman, assuming this is a slightly better movie, which one are you giving it to?
Oh God.
Dwayne has an answer.
Oh, no, I was going to say, just while you're talking about Oscars in DC, you better put some respect on the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad.
For costumes.
I know.
He's right.
But put some respect
I
on
hear
that
what you're saying, but we're talking
Suicide
acting
Squad.
performances. I get it, because I say it all the time. I troll people by saying the Oscar-winning Suicide Squad. But we're talking about just straight performances. Like, I'm trying to think, because like I thought Robert Downey Jr. deserved an Oscar for Endgame, personally.
Yeah,
I
least
think
a nod, sure.
At least a nod, at the very least. But I thought he more than earned it, not only through, because you know how a lot of movies sometimes you end up with a career Oscar type situation. That was a career Tony Stark Oscar that was deserved there. That was with a solid performance in that last movie.
I feel the same way about, not technically a comic book movie, but it's kind of a comic book movie, I think Daniel Craig should have been nominated for Skyfall.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I agree with that too.
That was the one that that movie's almost too good. It's almost like there's 22 James Bond movies and one James Bond film. They really kicked it up a notch in Skyfall. There's all sorts of interesting things that are going on in that movie that have never gone on in a Bond film. And there's layers and layers into that film, and it's this story about an orphan getting over the death of his mom. That's really what that whole film is about.
I agree.
And
Skyfall's the one with because the last one was Spectre, right?
Right.
Yeah. So the Skyfall is the one where he goes back to his family farm and does like his own James Bond Home Alone like crossover.
Yes,
that was fun
with Javier Bardem. And
Yep.
Judi Dench is great in it. Yeah.
Yep. All right, so we got that. Please keep sending in your oracles and your super chats and all that. Tell us, what do you define as a Christmas movie? What is maybe a Christmas movie in your mind that a lot of people don't agree with? Send us all of that. Send in also that. I'm curious, what other heroes or villains would you have liked to see in another Christopher Nolan Batman? I'm seeing a couple Hugo Strangers and whatnot. I think that he would also have been a pretty good villain too. But send all of that in for sure. So Saul, this next part is just called Meet Your Geek. It's just time to get to know you. What was like your first foray into geekiness? Like what franchise or comic book or whatever video game that got you into that element of your life?
Well, it might be that I'm dyslexic, so reading is a chore for me.
Okay.
But I'm sure you can see behind me. I deal with it. It's something that I always thought that for many years I was constantly struggling with like, when is this going to be easy for me? And then I woke up one day and went, it's never going to be easy for you. Get on or get off. And that's when that's the moment it got easy. And so this is going to sound weird, but it leads to somewhere.
Okay.
I had an English teacher in 5th or 6th grade, and I hated reading so much it was ruining my grades. And he gave me a copy of Sherlock Holmes and the Adventures of the Speckled Band.
Okay.
Which is a Sherlock Holmes short story. And he knew that if I could just finish something, that accomplishment would push me further. Like if I could finish, because Sherlock Holmes stories, almost all of them are only between like 12 and 20 pages.
Okay.
You could bang out a Sherlock Holmes story, like on the subway.
Oh,
and the Adventures of the Speckled Band, he gave it to me when I was in 6th grade, I think.
Okay.
And I fell in love with that whole world. And I fell in love with, well, first of all, it's about a story about a dude who murders his stepdaughter for insurance money with a poisonous snake. So when I was 12 years old, that was the coolest thing I ever read in my life. I'm like, this is what books are about. I'm all into books now. I'm Mr. Literary. So I got that, and it worked. His plan worked. I finished that story overnight. It was the first thing I was excited about reading for the first time. And then, my first geek franchise are Sherlock Holmes short stories.
Wow.
And that led to, when I finally enjoyed reading, I immediately dove into comic books. And I was kind of the mascot for my local comic book store growing up. I pretty much was taken in by them. I used to go there every day. I used to bag and board comics for credit.
Nice,
when
dude.
My parents got divorced, that's kind of where that was my hangout. That's where I got to go. They let me hang out all day. So like a lot of me being in the Schmoedown is trying to, I think, create that moment in my life where I had that comic book store. And the comic book store in the 90s was the internet, because you'd go there on New Book Day, and you'd go there and all sorts of people from literally 13 to 50 with different life experiences, different jobs, different opinions, different comic interests, Marvel people, DC people, indie comics people, Star Trek people, Star Wars people, different ethnicities, different races, different, I want to say different genders, but not really. It was mostly sausage fest. It was mostly dudes until it wasn't until like 15, 12 years ago that women finally started showing up and that I noticed in the geek space.
Sure.
But comic books in particular, Marvel was my first love, though I can't choose between Marvel and DC, and I won't. I hold both in my heart very much. They both mean a lot to me, particularly Spider-Man, Hal Jordan Green Lantern, and Batman and Tim Drake Robin. Those are the big four for me.
Tim Drake, interesting.
Yeah, those are the big four characters that were in my space. Also loved Spawn, because I remember that was very exciting. When Image Comics formed, that was such an exciting time to be a comic book geek. Like these rebels from DC and Marvel just did it their own way. And like that was before Kickstarter. That was before Patreon. These guys just went out on their own and they did it. And Todd McFarlane's still doing Spawn every month.
Yeah, dude.
And so I guess so the comic books really were my first geeky thing. And because I think I was so adverse to reading, I was a very big film kid. Like I was into movies when I was a kid. And because my father would let me watch any movie I wanted as long as there was no sex in it.
Interesting.
So like
that's kind of my parents.
Yeah. So like I saw Platoon when I was like 8. I saw like full. Yeah. And I think what that did is, as crazy as that is, and it is dead, it made me so incredibly curious to figure out what the hell was going on in a movie. Like, because I didn't understand any of the emotional context. Sure. But I was dying to understand this movie so I could talk to my dad about it. I was dying to. So then I would try to figure out other movies so I could. So like my own, my appreciation for film and my love of it I think just was born out of trying to have a conversation with my dad about Platoon, and so that eventually my love of movies. That's when I showed up at the door of Star Wars. And that's
got it. Okay.
That's the one that grabbed me in a very Batman grabbed me in a very specific way, but like Star Wars is like really did open a huge world to me. Yeah. So that's kind of my geek map.
That's absolutely crazy to think too. And thank you so much for sharing about your dyslexia and whatnot, because I know a number of people that do have dyslexia and how that is a lifelong struggle. You learn, obviously, like my cousin is dyslexic, so she has a whole system on how to do it. And when in high school, I would have been like, she's much older than me, so I would have been in like 5th grade, and she was in high school. She would explain to me some of the techniques that she would use in order to like kind of get through it in school and stuff like that. But I never understood at first about like why it was taking her so much longer to do her homework than like say her sister, who was only like a year older than her and stuff like that. And it's not because she was stupid; she was brilliant. It's just that she just had to work a little bit harder. So but she said something similar. She was a fashion person, so once she found something she was passionate about, it allowed her to get the work done, to get the skills to get to that point. So that's so cool to hear that for you, the Sherlock Holmes murdering of a stepdaughter story.
Yeah, Adventure of the Speckled Band. It's such a cool story, and I read it every few years. I pick it up because it's like 15 pages. You can bang it out,
right?
And it's such he slid a poisonous snake through a vent, and it slithered down into her bed and killed her. He was trying to get insurance money. It was the coolest. And all those Sherlock Holmes stories have fantastic plots. They still hold up, and they're 100 years old.
Yeah, no, and that's what's crazy. That's what's absolutely crazy. That's why I appreciated the movie. But I honestly think like I never really got into the show Elementary. I guess I know that Sherlock was really big in England. I haven't had a chance to check it out, but I've heard good things with Cumberbatch.
Sherlock is fantastic. I never got into Elementary either. I don't think Sherlock in America is not interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because I fell in love with that time. Because I fell completely, as much as I fell in love with Gotham City,
right,
or the Star Wars galaxy, I fell in love with Victorian London. And I was about 5 years ago. The first time I went to London, I went to the Sherlock Holmes Museum, and it's at 221B Baker Street. Real address. You go there, and I told the curator there my story about the dyslexia, and they got choked up. Wow. So like you came all the way to London to come here. I'm like, I mean, amongst other things, but yeah, and yeah, so that was really cool going there. But Cumberbatch's Sherlock Holmes is fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And the most important thing, what I think is fantastic, is that all of a sudden Sherlock Holmes, it's weird to carry Sherlock Holmes around with me as like my geek passion that I can't even talk to other geeks about really. Mm-hmm. And then in the past 10 years, all of a sudden there's 2 hit TV series, a film series, Enola Holmes just came out. All of a sudden everyone's like, it sort of feels like I manifested it. It's weird.
Hey, I'm there with you, because it's the same thing where it feels like, just as like a nerd, like video games and all that kind of stuff, where like we're shunned as children about this. And like as like a black dude in particular, like a blurred in particular, Dwayne, you could probably speak to this. Like back in the day, if you're trying to holler at like a black woman, you're like, oh yeah, I like Dragon Ball Z and Naruto. What the hell is that, motherfucker? Like, what? Well, I broke my own. It wasn't you. I broke my own rule. Okay, I'm putting $1.
You hear that, Harloff? I can be trusted.
Dog it. Oh, it was not Saul. It was me. Look, just for that, I will put $1 in the StreamLab jar. Because
you should give me that point on the 10-point quiz. That's what you should do.
Give you the point back? You better get out of here, bro.
Give me another question. I'll try to redeem myself.
I gotta find one.
I know you have alternates lying around.
I normally do. I didn't this time because I'm kind of having a little bit of a rough day, but normally I would. All right, hold on. Let's see.
I will say real quick, Elementary is actually really good. Johnny Lee Miller's portrayal of Sherlock is amazing. What they do with Moriarty is very like inventive, and it's one of the few interpretations of Sherlock where they actually lean into the drug usage of Sherlock Holmes.
Interesting.
Really?
That actually is an integral part of the show.
Okay, that is interesting. I mean, actually, it's surprising. I mean, Lucy Liu used to live a block away from me, down in Chelsea.
Wow.
So like, I used to bump into her. Like she used to go like, and let me tell you that it's after when you accidentally bump into Lucy Liu a couple times, you'll watch anything. I'll watch anything she does on mute. So like, I'm surprised I haven't watched it, but.
I'll check it out. I saw a random, like, sometimes you're just bored and you flip on you know, a lot of CBS shows, just the demographic they're going to doesn't always click. And so I was watching and I was like, yeah, but I'll give it a shot. I mean, if you talk it up, Dwayne, then, you know, I'll give it a shot. But with that, I wanted to ask you a couple other things before we get to the oracles and the super chats. What, that being said, knowing that that's kind of your foray into the geekiness, what's kind of your favorite category to attack in the IG? Like, what do you like talking about for hours?
I'm not sure I can tell you that. Well, okay, look, here's the thing. And here's where we are in the inner geekdom in 2020 and 2021, is that your core 8 slices have to be, if you're going to grade yourself, you know, bad, somewhat bad, good, great, excellent, your core 8 slices have to be very good to excellent, like, so that your
to be in a
Potter has
belt
to be,
competition. Yeah.
you're and if you're not in a belt competition, you're wasting your time in IG. Go to singles with them screwing around, and they can, you know, goof off. If you really want to play, with the real competitors, come to IG, and you have to be the top level in everything. You can't have a weak slice. You can't walk in going, I don't really know anything about Harry Potter. Get out of here. Like,
I agree. And that's what I was saying. This isn't a question of which do you think is your strongest. I'm saying which one do you like the most. So, like, for example, it's no secret that like Rachel's strongest and her favorite is Middle Earth.
Let me write that down.
But like, she's been on record that she could talk hours about Harry Potter. She could talk hours about X-Men. You know what I'm saying? So like, there's obviously a very clear soft spot in her heart about Middle Earth, and we know that that's her bread and butter. But just because that might be the thing that you know backwards, forwards, upside down, and backwards, like, that doesn't necessarily mean it's your favorite per se to like talk about.
I could try to give you another answer, but the real answer really is Star Wars, I suppose.
Fair.
And Larry Payne lured me out of my hibernation and got me to host an after show for The Mandalorian. So I guess I sort of showed my hand there on the Gucciverse channel.
That's a good point.
But I could also spend hours talking about like non-DC Marvel comic book movies. I could talk to you for hours about like other IG movies, like the other IG movies.
Sure. Like
RoboCop.
Yeah.
And until recently, I just found out Conan the Barbarian is not IG. Hopefully that gets rectified. But I could talk to you about like the 90s comic book movies that, like, when Batman kind of cracked the code for a little while. All these interesting, some of them pretty flawed, but interesting movies like The Shadow and The Phantom and Tank Girl and all these other movies popped up. I could talk to you for hours about that, about Tank Girl. I could talk to you. That's a movie that it's a really punk rock movie that I watched studying for the Hannah match, and I still got a lot out of it. I could talk, but
so that being said, that's good to know. What do you not like talking about? Like, what are you like you said, if you want to be serious in this, you're gonna have to know them all. But like, when you're thinking, I gotta study now, you're like, oh God, here we go. I gotta watch Batman v Superman again. Like, which category do you not like talking about, if any of them?
No, I mean, like, some movies. I can give you individual movies, but no,
that you don't like,
no individual categories. No, like the movie I dislike the most probably in IG is still a movie I probably kind of like watching.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah.
That's fair,
well, maybe
fair.
no, not Return of Swamp Thing. That movie is the worst. It's the worst friggin' thing. I can't believe, and that's a DC movie. You got to watch it. It's not even like one of those other movies that. Because there's a couple movies in IG, it's like, what are you doing here? But not most of them belong there. I actually think IG needs to be. There are movies where I think some competitors would tell you we should get rid of some movies. I'm like, no. There is a bunch of movies that I think fit the qualifications for what I think an IG movie is that actually are currently in
like
IG.
What? Like what?
The Conan the Barbarian movies are not in IG for some reason. Those are comic book movies.
I'm surprised that Transformers isn't.
I'm happy that the Transformers are not in IG. I've never seen one. And
first one's good. First one's good. I heard Bumblebee's good. Everything in between is just garbage. There it is. That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, they don't. look very compelling. And yeah, I grew up watching it. But I just don't. I'm not going there.
I'm also surprised G.I. Joe isn't, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that would fit. I haven't seen those either, but that would actually probably fit. That was also a successful, because G.I. Joe was also a successful comic book in the 80s and 90s. And
Exactly.
much more, actually, the comic book is very different and much more mature than the cartoon.
Yes.
Cartoon was kind of obvious for kids, but the comic book really wasn't. So that, I guess that you could sneak those in there. There's a movie that I love. I saw it at the right age. I saw it when I was 13. It was a movie called Heavy Metal, which is which is a rated R, a hard R, and solid science fiction anthology film that's based on a I believe it's a French comic book, and Heavy Metal, but it's a comic book movie, and it's not an IG, and it absolutely should be. It's a fantastic movie with amazing amounts of violence and sex, and it's completely it's animated, so it was very jarring at that age to see that movie.
I mean, I think it'd be great. I will tell you this: if Mask of the Phantasm though is a part of IG, then we've kind of hit that stride of territory where there's a litany of like the DC animated like movies universe that should probably also be involved. What's up, Dwayne?
Mask of the Phantasm was actually released in theaters though. That's
Christmas Day, 1993. Christmas Day, 1993 was released.
That's a good point.
Theaters.
That's a good point.
It was well reviewed and bombed. Didn't do well.
Made no money.
Yeah.
It was supposed to be called Batman Masks. It was supposed to go right to VHS, and the studio had saw an early draft, saw the script or an early cut, and they were like, fill it out a little bit more. We'll put it in theaters. So Bruce Timm's, once they pulled him off the roof, he got to work, and it is the best Batman movie of the 90s. I
agree. That I agree with. Mask of the Phantasm is phenomenal.
Well, I also saw Killing Joke in theaters. That had a very limited theatrical run. So
it was okay. From someone that loves the story of the Killing Joke, I don't like some of the liberties they took, but like I do think that the film was all right. Like I wouldn't completely write it off.
If you just skip the first 28 minutes of the film, it's exactly like the comic book, but just skip the first 28 minutes.
Like making Barbara and Bruce be in a relationship. I know that there are things that have happened like that in other iterations of it, but that's not what this was. You know what I'm saying? That's my issue, is you're deciding to take an element that has been used before, but in a completely different context, specifically in the context that like Dick and Barbara were a thing and they broke up for a minute, and then Bruce got with Barbara and then got Barbara pregnant, and then Dick fought Bruce like, bro, you just out here just like, I had to think like, what the hell? That's like a second daughter to you, son. Like, what is your problem? Like, that's a whole different element than like Bruce and Barbara banging and then she gets shot and now he's, what I'm saying? Like, it's just,
it was unnecessary. And what's so unusual is some of those DC movies are so painstakingly accurate to the source material, it's almost to a detriment. It's almost like you could make this a little more cinematic. Like year one is like page the screen. I don't, and truth be told, the last 3/4 of Killing Joke is almost page to screen. Right. It's just you have that goofy first act that is completely unnecessary. The two DC AU films that I love talking about recently are I love what they did. Excuse me, I hate what they did with Batman Gotham by Gaslight. I wasn't a fan of that. They altered a plot beat and they made somebody something that I don't understand what they were trying to do. I don't know what they were trying to say. I can't believe they thought that was interesting to change a certain character and they altered the source material significantly, and it really, really I don't think works. But they just did it's escaping my mind, not Long Halloween. They just did Hush. Excuse me. DCAU just did Hush.
I did.
And they in that film, I don't want to sound contradictory, but they altered the source material to make something a little more cinematic, and I think it works brilliantly.
I agree with that.
I think it might work better than a comic even. That's sacrilegious. That might be sacrilegious, but it might.
No. I'm with you on that, because Hush is probably my favorite storyline outside of the whole Court of Owls.
It's so
and the
good.
New 52. Yeah. Hush is one of my favorites, and so there was a huge difference in the film, but I think it works. I genuinely think it works. It's one of those few times that you can take that liberty, and it worked out pretty well. So Dwayne, real quick, what are we looking at with oracles and super chats and all that stuff, man?
We've got a couple oracles. Do you want me to read them out now, or you want to wait?
Yeah. If they're to be read, if they need to be like played out loud, go ahead and replay them. But otherwise, if they're less than 20 and you just want to read them, go for it.
Yep, we got 4 to read.
Okay.
The first one, I think I got this pronunciation right. Brynjar Ranesen for $10 asks, as an Icelander, I gotta ask Saul, why did you have an Icelandic flag in the background of your match?
Well, as I've discussed often, I am also, though I am born and raised in these United States, my family come from Icelandic immigrants. We were from the Sleipnir Islands originally, and we immigrated to my family immigrated here in the 50s. I'm a first generation American. They stopped in Canada first, and then they came here. So I'm a very I think ethnic pride's kind of silly, but I do have it, and I love Iceland. I've been there 3 times now. I plan on visiting it often for the rest of my life. It is a painfully beautiful place. It's maybe the most beautiful place I've ever seen. And I love it very much. And that is why this is proudly displayed.
That's dope, dude. That's super dope. And I respect it, man. I've been thinking about, I don't have a Guyanese flag. My dad brought me, my dad's Guyanese. I do have like a Guyanese basketball jersey. And I've been thinking about, as my next tattoo, once, we can go to tattoo parlors on the regular again and not in spurts, getting like the state of Texas over my heart, but then having the inside filled in with the Guyanese flag. You know what I mean? Like
cool.
kind of running side to side. I think that'd be pretty dope. But we will see on that. I heard the titty tattoos aren't the best. That's not, we can say titty, right?
It doesn't sound comfortable.
It doesn't. It just
it's not great. It's not great.
There you go. So there you go.
But also, I still have family all over the island, and so that's so I'm Icelandic basically. Which when I tell people that, and they look at me and they go, "Oh, now it makes a little bit more sense."
Yeah. Oh, that makes sense, dude. All right. What else we got, Dwayne?
All right, Dagan, who also sent in our video message, donated $1 and said 2021 #draft Saul. Also, sorry I misread Batman Returns for Batman Begins in that video question. At least I got the Penguin part correct.
Fair. That's fair. No, it's no big deal. We were glad to have the question though, because we were talking Batman in general, so that's not bad.
You want to hear something strange about being in this space? I know exactly who Dagan Esperod is because he has a Rolling Stones avatar in his chat. So when he chats, I know that as soon as Dagan introduced himself in the video, I go, "Oh, Rolling Stones."
Yeah. It's funny how that works though, because that is the case. Is that it was interesting even seeing you for the first time, and the fact that I remember hearing you on the call all that time, and then I tuned into Collider Live that day, and you had flown into LA, and I was like, "That's Saul." That actually makes sense. Like me and my girlfriend got obsessed this weekend with that show that Ken Jeong hosts. I Can See Your Voice. That was kind of the thing. I was like, yeah, that voice completely matches Saul. That is exactly kind of what I was imagining.
Yeah, although a lot of people were surprised. A lot of people were expecting, I think, Joe Pesci or one of the second guys to the left of Tony Soprano in the pool house or something. But
you have the look that if someone was like, we would like you to play a mobster, you could do it. But you also could play like Conor McGregor's cousin. You could also play like a dude in like the boardroom that also is like, like just like a workout warrior. You know what I'm saying? Like you could fit all of those different kind of archetypes, my friend.
Mm-hmm. Well, if anyone out there has any of those roles and they want me to read it, just contact Kate Mulligan, who's currently my manager. I'm assuming she would handle my acting work too.
I'm sure she would. Look, if she gets 10 to 15%, I'm sure she'll handle that, bro.
Yeah, she's going to be my E from that one.
There you go. I love that reference too. Bringing out the Entourage reference. That's dope.
Thank you.
All right. Tiffany F donated $5 and said, if forced to pick an Oscar nom from Batman v Superman, I would go Jeremy Irons for supporting. I would have liked to see Nolan tackle Poison Ivy in a fourth Batman movie and get more time with Joseph Gordon-Levitt's Robin.
I would agree with Batman v Superman in the sense that I'm trying to think who else was in that.
Amy Adams, I guess, maybe.
Amy Adams,
but she didn't do enough, really.
They didn't let her do enough, man. She was kind of shrunk in that regard. So that's a good choice. But then also, your comment about seeing Poison Ivy, that'd be dope. I guess my issue again, Nolan just decided to ground his world. So this idea of like a woman that has like all this poison running through her veins and can control plants. You know what I'm saying? Like if you wanted to go with maybe she's poisoning people, I could see that. But we didn't really have any supernatural elements in these three films. So I'm trying to figure out how you adapt Poison Ivy in that regard. That's my only concern. I don't know. What else we got, Dwayne?
All right, and our last one, the Swaggy Blur donated $1 for the swear.
What did I say?
Swear jar.
Look, I'm a man of my word, bro. I'm out. I literally before we started, and Saul Dwayne could back this. I was like, Saul, I just want you to know. You swear on the show.
Yeah, I'm the one who got spoken to.
I've been good for 11 episodes, and then I finally broke. And that's the problem. Dwayne, you understand this. There's a reason that there's certain black people I'm not allowed to imitate because I will naturally just say the wrong thing. Like I can never imitate Bernie Mac on the show because I'm instantly in trouble. There's no getting out of that one because he'd love to throw the MF word around a lot. But yeah, okay. Well, if y'all don't have anything else, Saul, once again, why don't you go ahead and plug your stuff, brother?
All right. So it's going to be Saul Week all week. It's very similar to Shark Week, but way more terrifying. Tomorrow, I'm going to be interviewed by the Let's Get Ready to Talk Schmoedown crew at 8:00 Eastern on the Let's Get Ready channel. Wednesday, I'm going to go smack around Jay Wade on his show on SEN After Live, him and Dean Lewis. I'm lucky to be interviewed by Rachel Silvestrini on Thursday on Rachel Silvestrini's YouTube channel. And Friday, I will be hosting, be a part of, Chris Hall is hosting. Me, Rachel Silvestrini, Sean Sullivan, and Chris Hall will be doing the Mandalorian after show. And then right after that, Late Night with Gucci and Kaiser with yours truly. So yeah, it's gonna be a lot of me all week. And then don't get used to it because this is like, I'm not doing this ever again.
Hey man, look, you gotta leave him wanting more. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So I totally understand that. Dwayne, plug your stuff, baby.
You can find me on Twitter everywhere, basically at Burkmade, Twitch at Burkmade, tonight, tomorrow, Thursday, Saturdays. You can find me here every Monday at 4 p.m. Pacific time, on Backstage every Tuesday at 12:30 Pacific time. And you can find me for one time only this Friday on SEN Live at 10 a.m. Pacific time.
That's dope, bro. Really fun to have you out there.
Can I elaborate on an answer I gave earlier?
Yeah.
So I am ethnically speaking, I'm Icelandic, like I said. But the reason why I actually had the flag hanging up in the background is that I didn't really think out where I was going to have my match, like in my home. Like I didn't know where I was going to have it. So where I set it up, there was a mirror behind me. And I kept looking at it and thinking that's really friggin' weird. And it just kept messing with me. So right before I went online, I took a flag and I draped it over the mirror so you couldn't tell. So that's in addition to my answer.
See, that's a little bonus trivia. If anybody cut out the video early, like a punk, like now they know, like when they do the movie, the Saul trivia Schmoedown, you know what I'm saying? They're like, why is an Icelandic flag in Saul's first match? Like for a 5-pointer, bro. There it is. You heard it here first, y'all. All right, and you know where to find me at the Swaggy Blurred, THESWAGGYBLERD. It's right below me. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Twitch. I'm probably going to be doing a little bit more Twitch streaming this week, just randomly, just because I got a little free time. Also, you know, it's fun to like help distract me a little bit. It'll be fun to connect with y'all as always. But I'll be here every single Monday, you know, at 4 o'clock Pacific. We are talking again more holiday IG movies. So we got plenty to get through. We're going to talk about the Yule Ball at one point. We will talk about Iron Man 3 directly as on its own at one point. And if there are other IG holiday movies, and you heard my parameters. My parameter is that it's part of the story. It doesn't necessarily have to be part of the plot. Hit me up on Twitter. Tell me which one you want me to talk about, so that we can get in there and like have a big discussion, because we got a few weeks left in December. I'm doing this all month, even after Christmas is over. So definitely send those in and let's chat it up. Other than that, Blurs in the Hood Tuesdays and Thursdays, 2 p.m. Pacific. I'll be on SCN tomorrow and Friday. That's at 10 a.m. Pacific. And that's pretty much it. So I want to go ahead and hit the music, Dwayne. I want to thank each and every one of you so much for being here. I want to thank my guest Saul for stopping through. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, Schmoedown Saul, and on all the platforms he's doing. Follow Dwayne. With that, I love y'all. Stay geeky. We'll see y'all next week. Deuces.